guys, and welcome back to another album review. So today we're doing Pink Floyd's first album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which I was surprised how many people told me they had never heard of this album when I mentioned this was going to be the next album review. And I'm sitting here like, time out. What do you mean you've never heard of Piper at the Gates of Dawn? But then I have to remind myself that when it comes to Pink Floyd, it's a lot like with The Who, where you have the fans that are there for the whole span of the band. And then you get the fans that are just a fan of the 1970s stuff. And no shade to either side. I've been on both sides of that line at different points in my life. Like, from about age 12 to 17, I only listened to the 70s stuff. But about 17 is where I got my first taste of, like, the 60s stuff. And I was like, wait, I did not know they were a band in the 60s. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because this was a pre-YouTube world. And just, I didn't have anybody musically guiding me. So, I was on my own for that one. There was no, well, maybe there was Wikipedia, but I didn't know about it yet at that age. But, regardless, I had no idea it was a thing until, what was it, that one compilation album, was it Echoes? And it kind of spans the whole career, and it starts out, obviously, with the earliest stuff. I was like, wait, what is this? What is this from? This is badass! So that started me down the rabbit hole of wanting to listen to the 60s stuff. So again, no shade to anyone if you have not listened to the 60s stuff before, but I would urge you to check it out because it is pretty trippy. If you're into psychedelic stuff, you'll enjoy it because that's what the 60s stuff is. So, the first track on here, now that I've prattled on for like 2 minutes, getting nowhere, is Astronomy Domine. And it's a very trippy, very psychedelic, kind of a song that musically feels like you're tumbling down the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, essentially, is what it musically feels like to me. It's kind of got a bit nonsense lyrics. It's that, like, very, like, mid to late 60s-esque kind of almost droning lyrics that don't really move off of one note very much. But for the style, it works. And for the time, that was the trend at the time. So again, I'm not shitting on that in the slightest. Actually, it works really well. Now, there is, like, some discordant chords in there, and there's like, interesting sound effects that I can only imagine if I had been around in the 60s, putting this on for the first time, having no idea going in what this is, who this band is, anything like that, and then immediately being met with this wall of sound, essentially. I'm pretty sure my mind would have been blown, because even in, what was it, like 2002, or whenever it was that I heard it for the first time myself, I was sitting there with my mind blown. So it still holds up, this many decades later. It very much still holds up. I like this one a lot. So, the second track in is called Lucifer Sam, which, admittedly, as a Catholic, that kind of put me off initially. But then I actually, like, looked at the lyrics and listened to it and, oh wait. This is not about the devil, it's about a cat. So all those years that I spent being really paranoid about this, apparently I was paranoid for nothing. Because actually it's a really cool song. Especially, like, the little guitar riff that goes throughout it. It's, like, halfway between, like, 60s James Bond and, like, 60s Batman TV series music. It's really cool, and it kind of drives the whole thing. And honestly, yeah, I feel like I've been missing out on that one, because my own paranoia made me skip that one until today. I've listened to the rest of the album before, except that song, because paranoia. So, third track in is Matilda Mother, and basically, best way I can describe this track is if Iron Butterfly wrote a nursery rhyme, this would be it. I know no better way of how to describe the psychedelia going on in this song. It's not a bad thing, it's just the most succinct way I can really describe what it sounds like. So, it's pretty cool, it's very trippy, which, I mean, I think we can pretty much say that about Pink Floyd across the board. Do we have to reiterate it every song? Probably not, but anyway. So, fourth track in is called Flaming, and yet nothing in the lyrics denotes anything about flames or fire. Actually, it's a very whimsical song, but the title does not match the contents. But it's also like a very experimental kind of psychedelic, where like it starts out with like wall of sound, almost horrible to listen to, but then it goes into like a more traditional 60s poppy kind of psychedelia. So it's kind of a mixed bag on this one. So next track in is Pow R Talk H. The best I can describe this as is very avant-garde. A lot of it is just noises and discordant sounds. There's one brief bit in the middle that's actually quite lovely jazzy piano, and if it just stayed with that, I'd probably really love this. But the rest of it, I'm like, this song serves one purpose. If you want to annoy your neighbors, you crank it and point it out the window towards their house. Otherwise, not for me. I'm sure someone out there is like super into it, but that one, not for me. So the next track in is Take Up Thy Stethoscope and Walk, which is a very trippy kind of one, but in a good way. It's kind of in a similar vein to Astronomy Domine and like See Emily Play. It's that kind of psychedelic vibe, with a little bit more of a lean into the experimental stuff again. I mean, this was the lineup where everything was very Syd Barrett heavy, and I mean, I'm not saying that is a bad thing at all. I love Syd Barrett, but I have to be in the right mood for it. So it's one of those things where it's a vibe, and if played at the right time in the right mood, it's fantastic. But outside of that, it's like, could have toned down some of the wall of sound shit a little. Just a little. Not a lot. I don't want to like strip the whole spirit of the thing. It can still have the chaos, but not be quite as just everywhere. It's like musical schizophrenia, which I realize, Sid, yes, I know. This is very much like the embodiment of it through music. And again, I'm not saying that in any kind of a disparaging fashion. It is just my observations with the style. Next track in is Interstellar Overdrive, which this is another really trippy song. Again, I know this is like calling the sky blue, but this one, it starts out really strong, then it kind of gets weak in the middle, and then it picks back up towards the end. So again, mixed bag, but they're really experimenting with things like the stereo mix of being this speaker, that speaker, this speaker, that speaker, back and forth, and it causes you to feel disoriented as you listen to it. Doesn't matter if it's through headphones or through speakers, it's a thing. I've listened to it both ways over the years, but it is a trippy song. It's also a very long song. This is like 9 minutes long just for the one track. So, for some of you, that might be a bit much for this much psychedelia. For others, it may be your favorite track. It's an instrumental, but your mileage may vary with it. So the next track in is The Gnome, which I think a lot of people discredit for being such like a silly little toss-away song. It's kind of like Bike, which is also on here. But it's a song about gnomes. How serious do you expect it to be? For what it is, I think it's perfect. I think it completely captures the whimsy that goes along with the lore of garden gnomes and such. I think it perfectly matches the subject matter with its style. So for me, that one actually gets high marks. So the next track, we're getting towards the end here, is Chapter 24. And this one's got a bit of cerebral lyrics to it that it takes you a minute, but then you like really sit down and look at them, and you realize it's about the passage of time, about how time is cyclical, and everything is a cycle, everything comes full circle, time and time again, way longer than any of us are here for. So that's essentially, if you look at all the words, that's basically what this one is. And with the music they put to it, I feel it's another one that's very fitting for what it's trying to be. So this one, another one that I actually rank quite highly for me personally. So the next track in is Scarecrow, or The Scarecrow. And it's kind of another, like, little silly knockoff, short one. But it's not bad. The harmonies are really nice on it. And while, yes, it is, of course, still keeping the theme of psychedelia that the whole album has, this one almost has almost a folky kind of vibe to it. Like, if British folk is a thing, this is that, I think. So it's kind of interesting because I feel like I don't see that often. Or maybe it's just me staying in my comfortable little corner of music that I don't, but I don't know, I find it interesting. And finally, the last track on the album is Bike, and as ridiculous as it is, that is actually my favorite song on the album, with the caveat that normally when I'm just listening to it on my own, like, normal, I cut it at the end of the normal song, and don't listen to the cacophony and noises of, like, bike horns and clocks going off. I'm like, I can skip that part. But I listened to it again today for the sake of giving the fairest review I could for the album. But the song in and of itself is just so goofy and off the wall. It just vibes with my sense of humor and always has. I mean, I think, God, I'm dating myself here, but remember the days of MSN Messenger and you could set your display name to anything and everyone always abused this and used song lyrics? I think I used every single line of this song at least once as a display name at various points. Because I love it that much, as stupid as the song is. I love it! I love it in its stupidity. It's wonderful. And no one understands the appeal to me, and I'm like, well, that's your loss. I love the damn thing. So, I don't know, I think for me, even though it's a bit low, and I'm probably gonna get a hell of a lot of flack from people for rating it this, I'm rating this album a 6.5 out of 10. Which is still above average. It's not a bad rating, but I mean, for as much just wall of noise stuff as there is, I could not, in fairness, give it a higher rating, for myself anyway, than I did. Once you get into the later Floyd stuff, that changes a bit, but on this one, I'm like, I'm being as fair can be here, at least for myself. It is what it is. So anyway, if you've never heard it before, I still recommend you to check it out just because it's something trippy, something that you've never heard before, and it's just fun. So anyway, that's about it for this one, I guess. So as usual, you know what to do. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe, hit that notification bell icon so you never miss an upload, leave comments down below. Make sure you're following my social media accounts, my Facebook fan page, my Twitter, my Instagram, my eBay, my Reddits, everything and more, it's all down below. And if you like what I do here on this channel and you'd like to help support it, the donation link, as always, is down in the description. Get your name on the end card for a month from the time of donating. Anyway, guys, till next time, see ya.